Sports.
The crowd comes alive. The Volunteers are ready. It's football time in Tennessee.
Dobbs drops back, fires long for the end zone. The pass is going to be caught by Tennessee.
Tennessee wins!
Caught it by Tennessee. Jawan Jennings. What a turn of events.
Give him 6.
To the checkerboards. Touchdown, Tennessee.
Rock Solid Sports, the only show with a home field advantage for UT Athletics. Here's tonight's host.
Welcome in, everybody, to Monday night's Rock Solid Sports. I'm Chloe here producing at the WTK studios, and we have Alli on the phones, and we have Riley at our wonderful sponsor for tonight, Fieldhouse Social. Rock Solid Sports Summer Edition Monday night show is sponsored by Fieldhouse Social, 2525 University Commons Way. And we thank them so much for their support. American craft food, beer, and cocktails, a 21-foot digital big screen TV indoors, and plenty more TVs throughout the restaurant, and a back patio. Riley's down at Fieldhouse Social. Riley, you're sitting right in front of that big TV down there. How's Fieldhouse Social tonight? We're not there on Wednesday. It's usually trivia night, but tonight is Monday night. I bet it's still popping.
Oh, yeah, threw me off a little bit because I'm so used to coming here on those Wednesdays. I did pretty much every week my freshman year. So coming here on a Wednesday threw me off a little bit because I don't think they were always open on Wednesdays. Or Mondays. I think they changed that pretty recently.
You're right.
So, it's a switch up. It's a change. But, I see people around here. They're enjoying it, enjoying the big TV, see it behind me. Of course, you're going to have the Eastern Conference Finals going on later tonight, so sure it's going to fill up even more for people coming to watch that on the big screen.
Yeah, absolutely. They have TVs for everything, all purposes. As I think Justin said last week, and if it has a ball, then it's on at Fieldhouse Social. Because they have just so many TVs. But we also have Alli on the phones, and Alli is in here because of course, she's one of our members, but I know she especially wants to talk about what she witnessed this weekend over at Sherry Parker Lee Stadium, softball regionals. Alabama got in there. Unfortunately, the Lady Vols will not be going to Oklahoma City this year for the college softball World Series, but it was I watched the end of this game yesterday, and we'll get into this in a little bit, but it was absolutely you get in there and you have Kiki Malloy going out with the bases loaded. It was crazy, but unfortunately they were not able to get it. It was heartbreaking, but I think that I would still write this down as a good season. Alli, welcome to the show, and let's jump right into softball if you want to.
Listen, I wish I could be there with y'all right now. My whole plan was to go to Fieldhouse first off, but then I got a flat tire, and Chloe knows very full well that I have a tire pressure thing in my car. I knew it was going to go wrong, but softball, I know as a reporter, we are not allowed to have a bias. We aren't allowed to show our emotions throughout a game, but I held it together very well. And then I walked out of Regal Soccer Stadium after that press conference and I sobbed. Sobbed hysterically. And maybe it's because I have a bias. Softball's where I started reporting, but I was genuinely ungodly heartbroken. So this entire weekend, Friday, I came on air and said Tennessee won. It was a close game. I was nervous. We go into Saturday, and it's 14 innings.
Yeah.
And 14 innings of scoring absolutely nothing. It was like 2-2. And then Alabama pulled that win. You know what? It is what it is. We have our ups and downs. But yesterday, Sunday, oh, my Lord. I showed up sunburnt to everything. And even the workers were like, Alli, you're burnt. And a worker got me some sunscreen, made me put it on.
Girl, you need to bring sunscreen.
I wasn't thinking about it.
No, it's okay. I forget.
Hey, well, 14 innings, though. Of course I'm going to get burnt after 14 innings in the sun.
Right.
But we show up. We knew that a weather delay was probably going to happen, but we start the game anyways. And it's like the top of the first, Alabama gets a grand slam. It's about
Right.
4:15. Sorry, I get like I'm like still upset about this. I don't know why I am. But Alabama gets a grand slam, and then we go into a weather delay before Alabama or Tennessee can even pick up a bat.
Right.
So
Yeah.
we're waiting 3 hours. 4:15, 7:15 is whenever we go back into it. And, every single inning, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, not a single score. Top of the seventh, Alabama gets nothing. So we thought it was over. We go to the bottom of seventh, we're behind. And we get a runner on the plate, and she gets a run. So it's now 4-1. And I'm not going to lie, I jumped out of my chair when bases got loaded. And Kiki Malloy, first it was Julia Katsolinopoulos up the bat.
I think it was
Was it
it was one of the twins. Alana.
Oh, it was Alana Leach.
Yes,
Sorry, that was the
yes.
day before. That was yesterday or Saturday. They all mixed together.
Yeah.
But Kiki Malloy gets up to bat. And, she's known for her dingers, her home runs. She's the queen of it.
2 outs, bases are loaded. If that had happened, and I fully was like, oh my gosh, Kiki's coming. And if if there's a grand slam right here, we win the game. Like Tennessee wins the game.
And I had my phone ready. I had my phone recording. And I caught the final play of the game. Kiki Malloy goes up, 2 outs, 2 strikes, bases loaded, and I was ready. I was praying. I was so excited. And then she grounds out to third.
Yeah.
And I was standing up. I shouldn't have been. I know I shouldn't have been, but I was. I was next to Rick Russo at WVLT, and he was also standing up. He was also screaming.
I think you're I don't think that's a bias at all, because I think whatever side you're on, you're doing that at that point.
Yeah, we were just like, Rick Russo was also up. Love that man, sweet baby angel. But she grounds out, and I was on the left side of the press box, so I was next to the family section. And these sweet dads had been like making sure I was okay. One got me an ibuprofen when I had a headache. They had sunscreen ready for me yesterday, but then we didn't have to have sunscreen because I had.
Allie's a crowd favorite at the Lady Vols games.
I mean, I might be.
That's funny. You're like their Taylor Swift up in the press box at the Lady Vols games.
I asked for ibuprofen, and they one of the dads pulled out like an individually packaged like Advil out of his pocket, and he goes, "It's just for you." And I was like, "You're such a slay." 2 of them came over, grabbed my sunburn, being like, "We told you to put on sunscreen." I was like, "Why didn't you offer it? Stop, this hurts." But I don't think I've ever been more hurt than seeing those dads tear up at their daughters being so close yet so far. And I went to the presser after, and I didn't expect too much out of the presser. I was like, this is going to be a little sad. It's no big deal. Alabama comes in first, which is not the normal. Normally, the winners come in last in the presser. Yeah. But, not that big of a deal. And their head coach, Patrick Murphy, said this is his most gratifying year. And he said that last year. He could not be happier for this girls or this team, but he was nothing but kind and thankful of Tennessee, the Lady Vols. He was praising them for their performance. He goes, "We came into this a little bit worried." And I could be paraphrasing too much, but they were nervous coming in. We were all nervous coming in. Right. But I think what broke me the most was Karen Weekly, Riley West, and Kiki Malloy coming in, sitting down, and you can see that they had been crying.
Yeah. I saw her. I was watching the broadcast, and they were just, of course, cutting back from basically just all of the Alabama team, piling up to Kiki Malloy. Like, not even all of our team, mainly just Kiki Malloy. And I was like, oh my God, because she's done, right?
She's done.
Yeah.
And so is Riley West, I think, unless she comes back for a graduate year.
Right.
But I think Riley West is also done.
Yeah.
And they were crying. And Karen's opening statement was verbatim for what I tweeted. "It's sad because of what these girls mean to each other, what they mean to the coaching staff, and just the relationships that have been formed. I think we're all just really sad that we won't be going to practice together tomorrow. And it took everything in me not to start sobbing in the presser."
Yeah. Because I also think the way they lost, like, we've seen so many times Kiki specifically, we've seen so many times her be able to, steal first. Like, if someone can do it, it's absolutely her. She's so fast. But like, just like, if it was anyone else who had with that hit, and I would be like, oh, the game's over. But it was the fact that it was her, and I was like, wait, it might not be, for like a split second. Because like, we've seen her do that so many times.
These girls
she didn't make
battled, and they battled hard. There was not a single score
They're
given
tired.
from
I know they're tired from Saturday
to the top of the 7th. Not a single score had been given up between either teams. And I'm going to be honest. I had wished they would have put Pickens in from the get-go, but she pitched after she was put in yesterday about 115 plus pitches. And she was amazing. Once we put Pickens in, we were holding off. There were no more hits, like true hits, really. Like, might have been like 1 or 2, but I don't really know what happened. And, as someone who, I won't be able to do softball next year, I wanted the most from these girls. And I am so wholeheartedly proud from watching them this entire year that my heart breaks.
Yeah.
But Alabama was good. Alabama came in strong. And you know what? It is what it is. I'm proud for the Alabama team, but I'm also proud of the Lady Vols.
Yeah. And I don't know. I was really sad because I was like, this is the perfect moment to win the super regionals, but yeah, they just couldn't do it. And it was, I mean, I know they could do it, but I know that that 14 inning game has got to be like the longest game of softball that I have ever personally known.
Another thing to think about is that's now
double a game. That's like 2 games
in super regional record. Right. Because in 2022 was 13 innings.
Oh, so that is the NCAA record for the longest game.
It's the NCAA record. We have the record now, which sad that has
good
to be the record.
Question mark. I mean,
good question mark.
I don't know.
Whatever.
It's not good or bad.
Held them off for that long, but I wish the season would have ended differently. I'm a proud Lady Vol fan, and whoever takes over softball after me better cherish those moments because these girls work so hard, and those families, the fans, they're diehard. Yeah. Because even after a 3-hour weather delay, the stadium was still packed.
Yeah.
Still packed, which is wild. That never really happened with sports from what I've seen.
Yeah. One time there was a weather delay in softball, and I was working the game. It was like 3 or 4 hours. I slept in my car. I won't even lie. Like, I went to my car and I was like, well, I'm going back to sleep. And those Lady Vols fans.
There's a photo of me that's circulating between reporters. I think it's really funny that
of
Rick
you?
Russo, yes, there is, of me laying on the floor in the press box hallway playing Monopoly Go next to a trash can. So I'm propped up on a trash can laying in the floor. But Rick Russo, love him, takes my phone and goes, let me take a picture of you. Send it to your friends. He also took one on his phone being like, this poor baby. I was like, well, fair.
That's funny.
You know what? I'm excited to see what they come in next year. We have a group of youngins that are going to be great.
Yeah.
Underclassmen that now have a fire lit under them, that they know what they're capable of, that they can move on forward to the next and win.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad you were there covering that for us this weekend. You should have started like interviewing those player parents and been like, can I write a feature story about you to put on the my show's website?
They were teasing me, and I was going to, but
I'm just kidding.
If we would have won, I could have done it. They were like, they only said I actually had Julia Katsalianopoulos' brother next to me the entire time. He was giving me the most grief. If I had to get up, since we live tweet everything, if I had to go up to like use the restroom or go grab water, if a play happened while I was gone, even though I was sprinting, he would already have it typed up on my computer for me to send out.
Oh my God. So if you guys don't know, like the press box at Sherry Parker Lee is not like a regular baseball or like that. Like you're literally basically sitting in the crowd, especially for bigger games like that. There's in the overflow seating. It's basically just like you're sitting right next to the fans. With them. So it's different in that sense. But no, you should have been like, hey, you want to record like an ID for me? I'm Joya Katsalianopoulos' brother, and you're listening to 90.3 The Rock.
I would have, but
I'm just kidding.
I asked them actually, and they were said if we win.
If
And
we win,
since we didn't win, I said no. I didn't even ask them.
Yeah, I'm sure like if they won, they'd be pumped up, and even some of the players would do that for
Let
you.
me tell you though, they warned me about sunscreen on Saturday, and I didn't put any on because I couldn't leave my laptop.
Mm.
And then I came in on Sunday, and they go, "Oh, she's burnt." At least 2 dads.
That's
You know,
so
my
funny.
sunburn. I was like, I'm gonna cry right now.
Is an experience, coverage experience like no other that I have ever experienced.
Really is. It's kind of wild.
Although I did meet Candace Parker and Tamika Catchings covering Lady Vols basketball.
That's a slay. I mean, I saw Johnny Plowman in the wild, which is crazy.
Yeah. Well, so Tamika Catchings, this is off topic, but I actually did. I came in a little bit late for that game, and there was nobody sitting like in the media rows. And Eric Trainer runs up to me and he goes, "Tamika Catchings in the press room in 5 minutes," and I was like, "That's where they all are." And I ran down there. Candace Parker did not do a presser, but I saw a bunch of other media running down and shaking her hands, and I was like, if these people are doing it, it's not unprofessional for me to do it. So I went down there because I was like, I'm gonna be so mad at myself if I don't meet Candace Parker and she's right there. And I have access to like get onto the floor. So I went over there during like between the third and fourth quarters, they do like the chicken dance for the little kids. Bad timing because she had her baby with her, and the baby was out there dancing. She was like watching him. And I was like, "Hi, I do not know what I said to her, but I'm sure it made no sense. And I hope she completely forgot about that. And I'm sure she did. And that's the only reason I'm able to sleep at night. But she was really nice. But anyways, back to softball. That's a coverage experience unlike any other. That sounds really fun. And you did a great job
this weekend. I know I had my times of not being able to be at games, but I'm glad I went to as many as I could and covered as much as I could, because even the workers now, one of these security checkers, I can't remember her name, and I feel so bad. And she goes, "Hey, baby,
I know exactly who you're talking about. I know exactly the one around by the clubhouse." Yes.
No, it's not Marilyn.
Oh, okay.
Well, Marilyn, it was Marilyn. She goes, "Do you do she's like, I'll see you at another event," but it was a sweet black lady with beautiful dress. Beautiful.
Yes, that's who I'm talking about. I love her so much. I don't know her name. I wish I did, but shout out to her.
Either.
The event staff that works softball are so awesome because it's always the same people, and they're always so sweet. It was an event staff
yesterday that gave me sunscreen. He wouldn't let me through the gate until I put sunscreen on.
And I wish I knew the lady's name at Lady Vols basketball games. She'd always gives me a piece of chocolate.
Well, like, she looks at me and she goes, "I know this is not the thing we wanted, but I'll see you again at basketball, right?" And I said, "I hope so. I hope I have enough time in my final semester to see you, because you are an angel." So
you're graduating in spring. So
no, I'm December.
Not spring. Sorry, December. I meant you won't be here during spring. That's what I meant to say. So Alli, it has to pass the torch for softball now. And as you guys can hear, she's
carry on my like little legacy. I had people in the stands wanting buttons yesterday.
Off your backpack? I
didn't have any on me.
Oh, yeah, like your buttons.
Like the WTK buttons and stickers. Yes. They wanted those, and I had none on me.
You can come on right down to P105 Andy Holt Tower. We'll hook you up with some.
I know. I told them, I can bring. They were like, "Bring us some next year." I was like, "I can't." So I think that's the most like the main reason I sobbed. But I like FaceTime my mom, ugly crying. Oh, wild.
So there you have it, folks. Alli's a homer. No, I'm just kidding. It's hard not to be when you're up there. I'm gonna go to Riley really quick, Alli, before you head out.
Go ahead.
You're about to. Riley, any comments on Lady Vols softball, just overall this season, or specifically like this series versus this Super Regionals versus Alabama?
And it's tough to follow up Alli because he just has so much passion for it, and man, it's tough to follow her up talking about Lady Vols softball. But for me, it's like looking at the way that Super Regional kind of worked out. I think really if it happens any other way, the Lady Vols are moving on, but it just so happened that, the Lady Vols are a team built around pitching, and they had to go, 14 innings, Harlan picking through 120 pitches or something ridiculous like that. So, I mean, in a game like that, it's gonna make it that much more difficult to turn around and pitch the next day, and that's what Peyton Gottschall had to do after throwing some innings in that game as well. So, it's just a tough tough break for a team that really relies on their pitching. But it's the way it happens. That's baseball, softball, diamond sports. They're all the same. They get crazy, particularly when you start throwing in weather and things like that. So tough
even
break
the
for
wild
them.
thing, you talk about my passion for this. I didn't play softball growing up. I didn't have a pure unbridled passion for it, but I got my Snapchat 1 year flashback, and it was my first time covering softball at super regionals. And that's what I hope any reporter looks at. It may not be your favorite sport, but take any chance to cover anything because it might become your favorite.
Yeah.
You might learn to love every little bit about it, the crowd, the group, and you may not know everything. My first game, I didn't even know what half the thing they were saying was called. I didn't understand what a fielder's voice was.
I sent you to cover that, and I showed you how to like read the stats and look at the stat sheet and stuff for softball. Or I showed you like the website.
In reality, though, I want to beat the stat sheet. I want to beat. I want to beat stat broadcast.
But I was just like, because I see some young reporters coming in and they're writing like basketball. They're writing down like every play and stuff, and I'm like, let me show you something awesome so that you do not have to do that. It's called stat broadcast.
Like I said, my one dream was like my reporting dream was never softball, but I'm so glad, and I would love to cover softball in the future.
And it's such a shame. Like I wish softball was like a bigger sport, like professional wise. Obviously they have it in like, we know Monica Abbott and all those greats, but it's like, there's no even like, there's even like the WNBA. There is nothing like that for softball. I mean, there is, but not to even the extent of the WNBA. But I feel like softball would do so much better, like professionally, than the WNBA has, because it's still different from baseball. Like because it still has those small differences. I think people are more likely to tune into that because you're not having to pick the exact same sport, men versus women's. It's like a little bit different. So I don't know. I think that would honestly do better than what has been done with the WNBA so far, just because.
Oh, absolutely.
Excuse me. I love women's basketball, but I think that when you have those subtle differences, like how long the game is and the rules are kind of different, like barely different, but you're still familiar with a sport like that because of baseball, obviously. I think personally that would do well. But yeah, I was heartbroken for, Kiki Malloy especially, but really everyone on the team. Everyone was crying out there. And
listen,
they played
Karen
so hard.
Weekly cry broke me.
Karen, yeah, that doesn't, happen too often. In fact, I'm kind of scared of that woman. So
yeah.
In the best way. In a respectful way. Yes. But anyways, that's softball. I mean, I think that they're still set up for success.
But I gotta hop off here, y'all.
All right, Allie's getting her car towed. Good night, Alli.
Yeah, good night, y'all. Thank you for having me on, and please respect softball, please.
All right, thanks to Alli for coming in. I really wanted her to talk about that because I knew she had so much fun covering that over the weekend. But also, on a brighter note of things, there was the SEC baseball tournament this weekend, and Riley was down there in Hoover, Alabama. We are going to talk about that when we come back. There's a lot to talk about because Tennessee is the SEC regular season champs, or not regular season, SEC tournament champs. So exactly the opposite of that. So we are about to talk about that in just a minute. More exciting things to come. Do not worry. Baseball is coming up. We're going to talk about your SEC champs, Tennessee Vols. Stay tuned. You are listening to Volunteer Radio. This is Rock Solid Sports on Monday night, sponsored by Fieldhouse Social. I'm Chloe. We got Riley. You just heard Alli. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. You're listening to 90.3 The Rock, UT's College of Rock.
This is Toots, and I wanted to tune in at 90 Pine Tree, The Rock, #1 station, the ruling nation, reggae.
Volunteer Radio receives support from the Tennessee Smokies Baseball, the AA Southern League affiliate of the Chicago Cubs, whose 2024 regular season schedule features 6-game homestands Tuesday through Sundays, now into September at Smokies Stadium in Kodak. WTK's Rock Solid Sports will have weekly Smokies updates, thesmokiesbaseball.com, and a link is at WTKradio.com. Volunteer Radio is supported by Fieldhouse Social and University Commons. Hosts a Wednesday night Rock Solid Sports broadcast at 7 p.m. Fieldhouse Social serves American craft food, beer, and cocktails. Featuring UTN Pro Sports on digital TVs around the restaurant 7 days a week from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. FieldhouseSocial.com and their Facebook page for news and more.
Hey, this is Chris Seeley of Nickel Creek. You're listening to 90.3 UT's College of Rock.
90.3 The Rock proudly brings Knoxville the best in new and classic, independent, and underground music on the Indie Owl. Monday nights from 8 to 10, hosted by former award-winning alumni from the WUTK Music Department and sponsored by Magnolia Records, 1515 North Central Avenue in Knoxville, and the Tomato Head Restaurant on Market Square and in the Gallery Shopping Center. Spinning cutting-edge music from around the world that pushes musical boundaries like noise pop, math rock, slowcore, shoegaze, garage rock, chamber pop, chillwave, and more. The Indie Owl brings you hard-to-find music from the artists that make it to the listeners who love it. The Indie Owl also provides independent artist news and chances to win Tomato Head and Magnolia Records gift cards. Tune in to Knoxville's true independent radio. The Indie Owl, Monday nights at 8, only on 90.3 The Rock, always bringing Knoxville new music first.
Volunteer Radio receives support from Tennessee Smokies Baseball, the AA Southern League affiliate of the Chicago Cubs, whose 2024 regular season schedule features games against Chattanooga, Birmingham, Rocket City, and others at Smokies Stadium in Kodak. The next homestand is versus Chattanooga Tuesday, May 28th. That is tomorrow through Sunday, June 2nd. SmokiesBaseball.com. WTK's Rock Solid Sports will keep you up to date with Smokies Baseball Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 7 p.m. The SmokiesBaseball.com, and a link is at WUTKRadio.com.
WUTK receives support from Central Flats and Taps and Happy Holler, sponsors of our Wednesday Munchie Madness, giving listeners 2 chances each hump day to win a $15 gift card. Flats and Taps says Sunday is always fun day with a variety of local beer, delicious wings, and fun flatbreads all day long. Flatsandtaps.com.
Welcome back into Rock Solid Sports. It's Monday night. We are sponsored by Fieldhouse Social. Riley's over at Fieldhouse Social. Riley, how's it going?
Going great as always when I'm down here at Fieldhouse Social, enjoying these several TVs they got set up in here. Watching some. It's one of those. I don't even know the name of it, but it's the little ESPN show where they like get the points and they like debate. I forget what it's called, but it's that one. That's what's
it's
up
always
there right
on
now.
like in the evening. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And you know, they're really going at it.
What are they going at it about?
It's been a couple of different things.
Oh,
One of the things was about it's been a lot of NBA playoffs, really.
Yeah. We'll probably talk about that third segment. We're going to jump to Vols baseball. Exciting news. Vols baseball won the SEC championship down in Hoover, Alabama. Riley was there. LSU was their final opponent. They won 4-3, but not before battling back through a team they had lost to earlier in the tournament, Vandy, and then Mississippi State, Texas A&M, and others. Riley, you were down there this week. Just tell us a little bit. I mean, I don't know, wherever you want to start, because I know when we were having this conversation on Friday, we were in a very different spot. We were saying LSU ranked, what number 3 beginning of the season, LSU down to like an 11 seed or something for this tournament. And then they're coming back to play LSU. We were saying if this happens, we were looking at the bracket, they're going to be playing LSU, and that's going to be wild. Just tell us a little bit about the journey you saw the Vols go on this weekend and that you went along with for them. Like any of the games, just talk about this a little bit for us.
Yeah, the journey this team went on was super interesting, right? Because on that first game they played against Vanderbilt, they were throwing just whoever had the arm, whoever could pitch. They were out there throwing pitches in that first game on Wednesday against Vanderbilt, and it showed. That's why Vanderbilt was able to score 13 runs on a pitching staff that this season has been really good. And you look at it, that score sticks out like a sore thumb, like when you compare it to the rest of these games Tennessee played. If you look at the runs they gave up to every other opponent, against A&M in the next round, it was 4 runs. Against Mississippi State, 5 runs. Against Vanderbilt, 4 runs. Against LSU, 3 runs. So they don't give up a lot of runs typically, and that pitching staff that for a long time during the season was kind of looked at as a weakness really came through in the SEC tournament. I think you've seen a lot of players step up. I mean, you see A.J. Russell kind of working his way back from injury. Xander Sechrist looked phenomenal, and that's a whole storyline in and of itself. That game he played against Vanderbilt, the whole separate storyline just from his perspective. Drew Beam looked good. You had relievers that were getting extended innings. Andrew Benke looked incredible. Marcus Phillips, I think, was another one of the big stories, and I'll get to that when I get to talking about that second matchup against Vanderbilt. But my point is, in that first game, it really didn't feel like Tony Vitello was taking it super seriously. It felt like, he's throwing whatever out there, and it's because of the way, it's the strange format that the SEC baseball tournament has, where for some reason, if you get that first bye, you're allowed to just kind of throw that game away, and you have no reason to do anything else with it. You kind of, it's those top four seeds, they get that extra double elimination game, and there's no reason for that team that has that higher seed to really try and throw their best arms and put their best players on the field. There's no reason. And Tennessee didn't, and they lost pretty badly because of that. But then when you see that they get to that second game against A&M, they start throwing their usual arms, get their usual guys out there, and all of a sudden the script kind of flipped. And Texas A&M, a team that they ended up getting the 3 seed in the 3rd seed, like overall in the NCAA, I think, when they just announced all the host sites and all that for Omaha and the road to it. Texas A&M is a team that got the 3rd overall seed. The other one was Kentucky, who got put out by, I want to say it was by LSU that Kentucky got put out by, or no, it was by South Carolina.
Yeah.
But with Tennessee, they pitched their best arms. They pitched their usual, what you would see in a game 1 of that 3-game weekend series. They pitched what you would usually see in a game 1. And in that game, you had your usual names, your Christian Moores, your Blake Burke, who ended up winning tournament MVP, by the way. Blake Burke did. Kavaris Tears, Dylan Dreiling, those guys that typically do well for them, they did well in that game. And that's kind of the story for most of the tournament leading up to that championship game. In that Mississippi State game, Mississippi State, another team that's hosting a regional and is going to be very, very good in their path to Omaha. Tennessee beats by a single run. Another one that was close. A lot of close games in this road to winning this championship. Mississippi State game, if I'm being honest, that one was probably the most forgettable. I mean, it just kind of came and went. It never really felt like Tennessee was in any danger until there towards the end. But they were able to pull that one out. And again, it came down to your usual names, your Christian Moores, your Kavaris Tears, your Dylan Dreiling, people like that. And in that game, that's where you saw Drew Beam go for a while. And you had Nate Snead come in and pitch. Kirby Cannell, I think, faced one batter. But did his job against that one batter. So it was super interesting. And Tony Vitello was saying his goal in this SEC tournament was to check boxes. That was his primary. It always came back to him wanting to check boxes, which is, him having certain guys throw a certain amount of innings to prepare them for the games that matter coming up here in the Knoxville Regional. That was his prerogative going into this tournament, and I think you saw that a lot going up all the way through the final game against LSU. He was saying that in that game against Mississippi State, he had Xander Sechrist warming up to be ready to go in case they wanted him to throw some pitches, in case it started looking like the Vols were going to lose there at the end. He wanted Xander Sechrist to get some work, and of course it didn't work out like that. They ended up pulling ahead and winning that game, but it goes to show you that Tony Vitello's main objective here was to experiment a little bit. Experiment with his pitchers, experiment with his lineup, and I think that really came through in the second game against Vanderbilt, where he had all kinds of stuff going on, and the most interesting was letting Marcus Phillips go 3 innings. Marcus Phillips, a guy that his whole season has kind of been this boomer bust. He's throwing 100 miles per hour every time, but it's whether or not he can control that and get it over the plate instead of letting it hang there, and it becomes a big play for the other team. Marcus Phillips looked incredible against Vanderbilt. It was one of the most remarkable performances, and got to talk about Xander Sechrist as well, who in his last game against Vanderbilt, that game 3 that Vanderbilt ended up taking, Xander Sechrist only pitched 2 innings, and he got smoked in those 2 innings, and they had to pull him out. And it ended up that was the reason the Balls lost that game, because they didn't have the arms left in the bullpen to make anything happen. So you switch him out, and Xander Secret's going into that game. It was a lot of people's question: is he going to be able to bounce back against the team that just made him have probably his worst outing of the season? And he did. He went 6 innings and gave up less hits, less walks in those 6 innings than he did in the 2 innings he played against Vanderbilt a couple weeks ago. So just a remarkable bounce back from Xander Secret, and gave way for Marcus Phillips to pitch those remaining 3 innings. And that's more work than we've seen Marcus Phillips get. Usually he caps out at a hard 2 innings. But Tony Vitello let him go to 3 innings. He got into some jams and worked himself out of it. So it was really remarkable to see Marcus Phillips kind of take that huge step. As Tony Vitello put it, he grew a lot. He grew a lot in that game. And that's what you want to see from these bullpen pitchers going into Omaha, because a lot of them were a little bit younger, a little bit less experienced. They needed to get those innings. They needed to get that experience going into Omaha, because you're going to have to rely on those arms deeper and deeper you get into the postseason. And in that championship game against LSU, that was where it was most evident that he was just kind of throwing it all to the wind and was like, let's try some fun stuff here and see if it works. Billy Amick being designated hitter instead of the third baseman. You had Reese Chapman subbed out of that designated hitter spot for Cannon Peebles. You had Cal Stark at catcher, so you were running 2 catchers. Cannon Peebles, a guy that has struggled a little bit this season. He came in clutch in that game against LSU. And, man, the story of the championship game was Hunter Inslee, man. Hunter Inslee had an incredible game. He went 4 for 4, topping his season high in hits in a single game. No homers or anything like that. That was actually Billy Amick. Billy Amick had a 3-run home run at the beginning of the game. I want to say it was the 3rd inning to put the Vols up 3-1 early. And ended up LSU kind of worked their way back a little bit. And Cannon Peebles got them that 4th run to make the difference there. And it was just a ridiculous performance from Dylan Moy pitching on the mound. Another guy that didn't have a ton of experience, but came into that game and really, again, the way Tony Vitello put it, grew up. Got that experience that he needs, and it's going to be a big, big boost for the Vols going forward as they prepare for Omaha.
Yeah, absolutely. Riley Haltom, our baseball reporter for this weekend, and also our new co-sports director with Griffin Hadley, I would like to announce for the first time on air, I think. But yeah, this LSU game, like, I was just wondering, I think it might have been Jace who covered the LSU regular season series here.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. This, I guess, doesn't make much sense, but I'm sure you watched those. Do you think that watching, like, Tennessee sweep LSU that first time, LSU definitely has improved here at the end of the season? Did you see, like, a difference in them when Tennessee played them here yesterday?
Oh, absolutely. There's no question about it. LSU is the hottest team in college baseball right now. And those are Tony Vitello's words, not mine. LSU is the hottest team in college baseball. After that sweep against Tennessee, they have almost identical records, Tennessee and LSU. So it's pretty remarkable the kind of turnaround they've had in their season. They were always a really good roster, and I think it was a matter of time until they kind of came together. And after that sweep against Tennessee, it seems like that kind of reset their mental and kind of reset their mindset. And you're seeing a whole new LSU baseball team, a team that is going to be very, very dangerous going forward because they are strong, man. They are going to turn some heads because they have some talent all up and down that lineup. It's pretty remarkable. They were throwing kind of like Tennessee, throwing a ton of different pitchers in that championship game. So the nature of the tournament, you kind of run out of arms there at the end. But even their backup bullpen was looking really nice and really limited. It was one of the worst games I've ever seen from Christian Moore. He was not playing well. Same thing goes for Kavaris Sears, another guy that is typically really strong and was having a really good tournament. And that championship game against LSU, I think he went 0 for 4. So really bad day from some of the big names. Of course, some of the other guys had some success, like I mentioned, the Hunter Inslee, the Billy Amick. But regardless, that little bit of fight that they showed against a really, really tough Tennessee lineup, probably the toughest lineup in all of college baseball to face 1 through 9. That bullpen, what to me is one of the biggest ways to show that LSU's grown a lot. Earlier in the season, that's a game that Tennessee kind of runs away with. But those bullpen arms were thrown with a lot of fire, and it showed in the way they were able to kind of stifle that Tennessee offense that's usually so dynamic. That team is going to go places, man. That is a really, really fun squad that LSU has.
Yeah. And we're kind of talking about like that. We're kind of talking about that, like it feels like they always do. And earlier in the season, after Tennessee swept LSU, I was kind of thinking like, I feel like they'll be back. I don't know. It's LSU. It's similar to Tennessee. It's not just a baseball school, but it's so similar in the fact that they're both SEC schools that obviously pride themselves on football, no matter how good the season is. But baseball, like, if you're good at baseball, those fans will show up. And LSU fans are kind of wild. Tennessee fans are too, of course. But yeah, I was really excited for this game, and I was so pleasantly surprised we won it. Riley, I was wondering, you already said Blake Burke named MVP of the SEC tournament. Who's your MVP? Just who sticks out off the top of your mind? I know Billy Amick. I also want. Well, I'll go ahead and ask you this question first. Who's your MVP from being there?
Well, to your point about the crowd, LSU definitely had a great crowd there. That was really just it was like 45% Tennessee fans, 45% LSU fans, and 10% other fans that had bought tickets for the championship game. It was pretty remarkable. That LSU crowd was super into it, and maybe didn't quite reach the highs that the Tennessee crowd did. When they would play Rocky Top after a run or whatever. That the Tennessee crowd got loud singing some Rocky Top, but that LSU crowd throughout the game was super loud and definitely showed their support for that team. So that was really cool to see. It was a really cool environment. But as for MVP, I don't know if you know this, Chloe, but they actually the conference MVP and the all tournament team, all of that is voted on by the media. So I cast my ballot, and in my ballot, Christian Moore was my MVP. Because I think if you're looking at the tournament run as a whole, Christian Moore, I do think it was kind of the MVP for the Vols, came up clutch in a lot of big moments. But that being said, Blake Burke certainly was deserving of it. I think he had one of the highest batting averages of any player in the tournament individually that had more than, 1 or 2 at-bats. So seeing the way Blake Burke played, I want to say his batting average was like over 500 in the tournament. So just a really good game a really good tournament from him. A guy that's, kind of been a little bit quieter there towards the end of the year, but really turned it on in the tournament. And so I certainly see him as deserving of MVP. And I have no doubt that the other people that voted him for that was they made a good choice, because Blake Burke was very, very good this tournament. I just personally think Christian Moore came up bigger in some of the big moments, and that's why I gave him my MVP for the Vols. But if you went strictly off that championship game, no question, I would have no question in my mind that I'd pick Blake Burke.
Yeah, that makes sense, right? Because Christian Moore is someone who I should have looked at this. I think he might be he's been here for a long time. He's been at Tennessee for...
He's a junior.
He's a junior? Okay. So I remember he was at Tennessee my sophomore year. And I'm pretty sure. That makes sense. Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
That maths out. Anyways, but so that's a name that I've been familiar with this whole time, but I feel like it was like, last year he was good too, but this year specifically, it's not like he blew up out of nowhere, but he is like, I feel like he's performing exactly how you want like those veteran players to perform. And that's why I feel it's so important that Tony Vitello has developed such a good, his recruiting and just the environment and the way and this culture of this team is important, because that's how you get a good, transfers, but also it's how you get people like Christian Moore to stay. Like, if Christian Moore transferred and didn't stay all his years here so far, things would have worked out different, which brings me to my next question. Billy Amick, how would this have turned out differently if he was still injured? I know he had that appendix issue earlier in the season.
Yeah, I think that appendix did a lot to kind of hinder Billy Amick and his transition to Tennessee. I think that's the guy that a lot of people had some really, really high expectations for. The same kind of goes for Cannon Peebles, who also struggled a little bit with the transition to the SEC. It goes to show even without something like your appendix bursting, it can be pretty tough to make that transition from an ACC school to an SEC school because, as Tony Vitello put it, it's the best league in all of college baseball, and it's not particularly close. I mean, just look at the Omaha field this year, and there's like, 10 SEC schools or something ridiculous. It's a very good league, and it's very, very tough to play in. The arms are so great, and it's an adjustment. And I think that kind of set Billy Amick back at the beginning of the season. I think you kind of see him have a little bit of an up and down season, struggles more on those weekend series, but typically has really good midweek performances. So it's been a big question about Billy Amick. Will he be able to continue to make that adjustment as he faces some of these tougher SEC schedule teams? And I think you're going to see Billy Amick play some of his best ball in Omaha when he's playing against teams that are very different from Tennessee. When he's playing against, who is it in Tennessee's regional? I'm going to say like Eastern or Northern Kentucky, Indiana, Southern Miss. Those are teams that I think you're going to see. I think you're going to see Billy Amick play some of his best ball against those teams. The team that are maybe not quite as good as those top end SEC teams. You're going to see Billy Amick come up big in a lot of those games.
Yeah. And that'll be exciting because, I mean, really all of this is so exciting because this baseball team we talk about depth and stuff like we did with softball. And I mean, the baseball team is just the same. Like they have so many names and like there's always someone who's going to step up as we saw in the LSU.
Oh, and it's worth mentioning before that 3-run homer that he had in the championship game that ended up being, 75% of the ball scoring in that game. Before that, in the tournament, Billy Amick was 0 for 17 leading up to that home run. So one of those moments where it was like he's super due, he super needs like just something to break for him, and for it to go that way at a moment in the game, just a really cool moment for him and super needed for him because he was struggling really, really badly before that.
Right. That's awesome. Yeah, I was excited to see him to see him come in and do that as well because it's always, I don't know, it's never personally happened to me, but it always, we've all had our favorite players who have had an injury and just even if you aren't an athlete, you just know how like emotional that can be. But luckily you don't need your appendix, it turns out. And he's all right. So the stage is set for the Knoxville Regional, which will be here in Knoxville next weekend. It's going to be Southern Miss, Indiana, and Northern Kentucky, correct?
Yep.
So Northern Kentucky's first up on Friday at 7 p.m. These teams, I guess out of Southern Miss is someone who they played last year in the regionals. Am I wrong?
Yep.
Yeah, I thought I remember that. So out of this lineup, obviously, because I want to say Indiana's a tough, but I know Southern Miss is pretty good at baseball school because they always come up in baseball. Who is like, I don't feel personally like the Vols after what they faced with the SEC will face, like the true challenge in the first regionals or whatever. But I mean, you never know. So who do you think is the most like challenging team in this lineup for this weekend?
Yeah, if I have to lean to anybody, I would say it's Southern Miss.
Yeah.
And it's just solely because if you look at the Vols, they tend to kind of struggle against midweek opponents sometimes. And I think that comes from the change in the like caliber of pitching that you're facing. When you're in the SEC, you're constantly geared, ready for a 90-mile-an-hour pitch to come flying at you. When you're playing some of these midweek schools, sometimes the velo tops out at like 70 or like 80. So you're looking at a totally different look. And that's why, you look at early in the season, the Vols played UNC Asheville and won 3-2. Like way closer than it should be to a school like UNC Asheville. But Southern Miss is a team that their pitching is going to be that kind of uncomfortable brand for the Vols, but they have the bats to kind of take advantage of that. So they're really going to need the offense to dial in. Maybe Tony Vitello has them, swinging it off-speed pitches in batting practice or something like that. You've got to find a way to prepare for that, because I think you've seen too many times in some of these midweeks the Vols struggle against that kind of pitching, and Southern Miss has the bats to take care of that. Like the what was it, UNC Asheville didn't, right? They could only score 2 runs, and it was on those midweek pitchers, particularly some of those younger ones who at that point had very little experience so far in that season. Southern Miss has the bats to be able to kind of damage the Vols at certain points, depending on who they throw. So I would be kind of worried about Southern Miss of anybody in this regional. Indiana could certainly pose some problems, maybe, but I'm super excited about the potential for Chase Burns rematch. I feel like it's destined to happen, right? Even though they're not Wake Forest isn't the 1 seed in their region. They're the 2 seed with Eastern Carolina, who, of course, is the 16th seed, which means the Vols will be facing them in the Super Regional. So a Chase Burns matchup in the Super Regional at this point feels almost inevitable. And so I'd be really interested to see how that turns out.
I will be marking that, on my calendar. That is, I love personally when Tennessee plays teams of someone who's transferred and beats them. The Henry To'oTo'os,
that picture, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So good.
Chase Burns, is someone who I don't have any hate towards people that, go away from Tennessee. They make their own decisions. They're adults. It's for the best or whatever, but it's still really exciting. And I mean, I haven't watched any of Wake Forest games this year, but I know I almost said Blake Burke, Chase Burns is out there like that. That's going to be awesome, because his pitching here was just like electric, and I miss it so much, but I'm definitely very excited for that. Like that, I don't even have the words for it. It'll be like softball a few years ago played Alabama, I think, in one of the regionals, and they beat Alabama, unlike this year, to go to the next level. And Alli Shipman was a player who was with Tennessee for a while and had transferred to Alabama that year, and she was the last batter up, and we got her out. I was like, if Alli Shipman beats us right here, and it's her that does it, that will be so personal. But it is personal. Chase Burns, I took that personally. All the fans took that personally. I take that more personally than I'm sure any of his teammates or coaches, etc. But that's
to your point, I can't wait for the matchups against like Arkansas in basketball, and I hope we play like Indiana in women's basketball. Caroline Strickland, one of my favorite players, and it's super sad to see her go, but man, I would love the chance to see the Lady Vols play Indiana for that reason. It's a lot of fun playing former players, and I think you've seen a lot of instances where it's been really fun basketball to watch. Perfect example is Lady Vols versus Vanderbilt this season with Justine Passat, who transferred to Vanderbilt, and those have been super interesting. Brooklyn Miles at Kentucky for the Lady Vols, that's been super fun to watch. So a lot of fun when the Vols or Lady Vols play a player that has transferred out. You can see the emotions, but at the end of the day, it's all love, and it's all on the court, and it's really fun to watch.
Absolutely. And that will be in Knoxville this weekend, the regionals for baseball. I believe, Riley, you're going to be down there. Griffin will too, to pump out some coverage for us. It's going to be exciting, so you should stay tuned to Rock Solid Sports. We'll be right back. We got a little bit time left for some NBA playoffs here in the last couple of minutes. You were listening to WTK Volunteer Radio 90.3 The Rock. This is Rock Solid Sports on UT's College of Rock.
The Rock receives support from Fieldhouse Social, a fun and laid-back restaurant that offers American craft food, cocktails, and 40 beers on tap, with a 25-foot live TV and a full lounge area for sports fans. Open 6 days a week right on campus at University Commons, where football, food, and fun come together. FieldhouseSocial.com.
Volunteer Radio thanks Blank Newspaper for their support and media partnership. Blank Newspaper is a local independent publication available at over 300 locations in Knox and adjacent counties. Blank's latest issue features Blank's 2024 Knoxville's Finest Readers Poll. WTK would appreciate our listeners voting for us as Knoxville's finest radio station, as well as voting for any of our on-air personalities. Rock Solid Sports wink, wink, or for any of the Rock social media platforms. The poll is open through May 31st at blanknews.com or mail in the ballot from the new issue.
Volunteer Radio receives support from the Tennessee Smokies Baseball, the AA Southern League affiliate of the Chicago Cubs, whose 2024 regular season schedule features 6-game homestands Tuesday through Sundays, now into September at Smoky Stadium in Kodak. WTK's Rock Solid Sports will have weekly Smokies updates. TheSmokiesBaseball.com, and a link is at WTKRadio.com.
Hey people, this is Tim Easton. You're listening to 90.3 The Rock, bringing Knoxville new music first.
The Rock receives support from Stefanos Pizza in Hardin Valley. Those looking for the same delicious Stefanos Pizza that was available on the Strip for 45 years, including gluten-free crust, is still available at Stefanos Hardin Valley, as well as craft beer on tap. StefanosPizzaKnoxville.com and their Facebook page.
90.3 The Rock proudly brings Knoxville the best in new and classic, independent, and underground music on the Indie Owl. Monday nights from 8 to 10, hosted by former award-winning alumni from the WUTK Music Department and sponsored by Magnolia Records, 1515 North Central Avenue in Knoxville, and the Tomato Head Restaurant on Market Square and in the Gallery Shopping Center. Spinning cutting-edge music from around the world that pushes musical boundaries like noise pop, math rock, slowcore, shoegaze, garage rock, chamber pop, chill wave, and more. The Indie Owl brings you hard-to-find music from the artists that make it to the listeners who love it. The Indie Owl also provides independent artist news and chances to win Tomato Head and Magnolia Records gift cards. Tune in to Knoxville's true independent radio. The Indie Owl, Monday nights at 8, only on 90.3 The Rock, always bringing Knoxville new music first.
Welcome back to Rock Solid Sports on Wednesday night. I'm Chloe here with Riley Haltom here on 90.3 The Rock. We just talked some great UT baseball balls are going to regionals as SEC tournament champs. And now we're going to jump to NBA, for the last couple of minutes here. Celtics looking to seal the deal tonight in just a few minutes, actually, versus the Pacers. They lead the series 3-0. And yeah, not looking too good for the Pacers right now. I was kind of rooting for them a little bit, just because they're kind of the underdogs and I feel like they have a good story. Riley, who do you think the Celtics are going to take this series win tonight?
Yeah, I think it's kind of over, especially after last night. Not last night, but the last game they played. Pacers were up pretty big there, but then kind of blew the lead and let the Celtics come back and ultimately win that game. And to me, that's kind of a recipe for disaster. It's 0-3. I mean, you are in Indy, so you got that going for you, but the Celtics are just, a step above everyone else in the East. But I think when it gets to the finals and they're forced to play a team like the Mavericks or the Wolves, it's going to be a different story.
Yeah, I totally agree with that as well. I think that that I was rooting for them, but it's because there's a reason, right? Because I don't know, the Celtics arguably the best team right now. So we'll have to see about that. That is tonight in just a couple of minutes, Boston playing for the win of the series. If the Pacers win this game, it could get exciting, but I really, like Riley said, in my opinion, I think it's pretty much over from here. It was a fun run for them, however, and then on the other side, of course, you have the Mavericks and the Timberwolves, and kind of a similar situation here. Dallas is leading the series 3-0. Do you feel different about this one, Riley? Do you feel like maybe the Timberwolves, I don't know, it's tomorrow tomorrow at 8:30 is kind of, the same thing for them, for them tomorrow, like that the Celtics are in. So, do you think that the Wolves have any chance here?
I like the Wolves' chances to come back better than I do the Pacers, but not by much. Feels like the Wolves have just been kind of defeated. Anthony Edwards has been playing probably the worst ball of his career. It comes down to the Mavericks are playing like one of the best teams in basketball right now. Kyrie's doing well. Luka's doing well. They've got scoring up and down their lineup. They're super balanced with offense and defense. So I like their shot to kind of close the series out here. It's in Dallas tomorrow night. I like their shots to close that out and ultimately go into a finals matchup with the Celtics that I definitely could see them winning, because I think I said at the beginning of the playoffs on the Fast Break podcast, which you should go check out with a lot of the WUTK Rock Solid Sports guys, but I said at the beginning of the playoffs, I think the winner of the Dallas Mavericks and Los Angeles Clippers series in round one could go on to win it all. And that's kind of the reality that's playing out, and so that's what I'm rooting for to happen, because I called it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you could very well be correct in that opinion as well. We will see by this, we'll see by Tuesday, come our next show on Wednesday. We'll be talking about that. Don't forget to vote for us in the Blank News Finest Readers Poll. Vote WTK Best Radio Station if you like us. If you like listening to the show, vote Rock Solid Sports as Best Sports Show. We've won the past few years, and it would mean so much to us to get it again. That's at blanknews.com. You do have to fill out a few more categories, but you can vote for your favorite restaurants, favorite venues, etc. So there's a lot to show appreciation for there. And that's going to do it for our show. Thanks to Riley for coming in and talking softball and talking baseball, and Alli for talking softball. We'll be back with more Diamond Sports later. From Riley Haltom, Alli Cian, and Chloe Livering. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you on Wednesday. Indie Isle is up next. You're listening to 90.3 The Rock, WTK's College of Rock.
From the home of the University of Tennessee Volunteers, we are Volunteer Radio.